Blast me to Electia! It's time for the Mad Merlins Warhammer 40,000 Imperium Journey. Issue 49, Part 1, Lore and Build Guide. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Mad Merlins Warhammer 40,000 Imperium Journey. The series where I take you through the Warhammer 40,000 Imperium Partworks collection by Hachette. And we are at issue 49 today, and it is a whopper. Here is our frame and all the bases. We'll go into that in a little bit more detail in just a second. But here is the issue in question. And we see we have 10 miniatures of this issue, so a good load of models for our Adeptus Sororitas collection. So we get our new models, new data sheets and rules, and we also have a brand new narrative mission, which is a huge fold out double page spread. So that'll be quite fun. The mission is 3 battle mats large, so it'll be quite nice to see how that pans out when we get around to doing that in the next video. So let's go vertical and take a quick flick through our magazine. And then we'll have a look at our frame. And then I've got a few requests on a build guide, as well as I've got some nice tips on what to do if you've got multiple copies of this issue. So I'll be right back after I go vertical. Here we have our magazine. And here we have the internal contents. So we've only got 2 pieces of information. That is the battle records for our Penitent Engine and for our sister Repentia Superior. We then have building and paint guides for all our new models within this issue. Battle proper data sheets for our Repentia Superior and the Penitent Engine. And then our fold out mission escalation. So this is our first big mission that's using 3 game mats. It's going to be a really fun and exciting battle. Without further ado, let's go into what bits of information we do have. So the Penitent Engine, the Tormented. Few heretics are given the chance to redeem themselves. Those judged worthy may be entombed within a Penitent Engine, their guilt, sorrow and desire for forgiveness weaponized and directed against the unholy. So each Penitent Engine is a sort of an exosuit. It's built up with injectors and neural implants to push the pain of the pilot to the maximum. Our version is equipped with Ministorum Heavy Flamers and Penitent Buzzblades. You can also equip them with flails and heavy bolters. And so my penitent's name is Vidka, and he was a murderer, but obviously the crime wasn't too bad that he has given the chance to be redeemed, although redemption might end in his death anyway. At the bottom, we've got a little bit of a path to redemption, so if your Penitent Engine does all these 3 things, tick them off, and then they can be removed and a new Penitent put in place. So destroy a unit in a single round, defeat an enemy character, and take control of an enemy objective. Then we've also got a tick chart for every time that you destroyed 6 models on a charge, and any other notable battle records you'd like to keep. Moving on, we got our Repentia Superior, the Overseer of the Penitent. It is the task of the Repentia Superior to oversee squads of Sisters Repentia. Ensuring that they fight with the fury and zeal required of them, armed with neural whips and singing holy prayers. The Repentia Superior goads her chargers forward into the midst of the enemy. So her backpack has a pair of burning braziers. She has a pair of neural whips, which she uses to lash her opponents into a frenzy. And they can also be used to strike down the enemies if they get too close. She has a book full of holy scriptures that she can refer to in the midst of battle. And like most sisters of the Order of the Martyred Lady, they have white hair, which is to honour Catherine, whose hair turned white upon seeing the Golden Throne. They also keep a good watch on the Sisters of Repentia to make sure that they are duly punished, and also if they have deemed to be forgiven and can return to wearing their full power armour. On the back of the battle record, so we got her name is Mina Pyre. She is Electia's Sentinel. Her whip is the Sabre of the Righteous, and her pistol is the Emperor's Voice. So we've got a Miracle Dice tracker here for this unit, so each time you make use of one of the rolls for the Miracle Dice, tick off and say when you used it. And again, we've got the exemplary battles there. Okay, so moving on to this issue's build guide, we've got a rather heavy hobby focus in this issue because we have 10 models to build and paint. Most of these are fairly easy models to build, but I have had a request on how to put the Penitent Engine together, so I will show that in due course. So to build as Imperium Superior, you just push the two halves of the body together, glue on the leg and the arms, glue on the head, and then glue the backpack on. What I will be doing is gluing the backpack to the stand and keeping it as a separate component so I can paint all the areas behind. Sister Superior, much the same. You just glue two halves of her body together, stick her chainsaw arm on, head and backpack on. Moving on to our battle sisters. So we've got the sister with the Simulacrum Imperialis, two halves of the body, backpack, bolt gun, head, and the actual simulacrum itself. Stormbolter sister, much the same, two halves of the body, backpack with extra ammo, Stormbolter gluing on there, so there's no real point leaving this as a separate component because there's not much detail being obscured. So I've already built one up as a test model. Then the Flamer, I might leave her Flamer arm off, just to make sure they are in correct position when gluing them on. She has a specific backpack with two extra flame canisters on, and she's got a dead heretic being burnt to a crisp there. And then finally we got the Repentia Superior as the last of our fully powered armoured battle sisters. So she's got two parts to her front torso, the top of her cowl and then her front skirt there. Got her extended whip and her brazier plus her bare head. Building our Repentia Superior, our sisters Repentia. So I actually did mess around with these, and you can swap the arms, but it is going to require a little bit of green stuffing. Other than that, they really do only have one way they can go together. The flails here, they are fairly fragile, so it's up to you if you want to leave them off. I have built one set of these already and glued the flails on, and so far they haven't broken, but the first ones I built back in 2019 when they first released the Plastic Sisters, they did break, but I managed to repair them. I'm knocking my table to pieces. And our Arco-Flagellant, again, it only goes together one way, so we glue the front of the torso to the back of the torso, then we glue on our extra flail arm. You can possibly repose this arm slightly if you, again, filled in a little bit of space with green stuff. You could have it a little bit more back, a little bit more forward. I'm going to try and see if I can mix and match with components from the other Arco-Flagellants, see if I can make some different poses, because otherwise I'm going to end up with nearly 10 with very little in the way of pose difference between them. So moving on to the Penitent Engine in itself. So we have the main back, we glue the two halves of the front torso, hook the rear of the hip guards over the hip joints, and then push till it clicks in place. Then we seal it all together by gluing the front of the sarcophagus in place. Then we glue the arms and the lower half of the hip guard there. Glue the two halves of the feet. They are slightly different shapes, so they will only go onto 1 foot, but they are both the same halves. So just be careful when clipping these out, you make sure you get the correct components together. And then the arms, so these just socket onto little peg posts on each of the hip joints. Then the arms, you just got to glue the heavy flamers on, and they go onto these square pegs. So what I'm going to do then, as somebody's requested to see it in action, I will clip off and clean up all the components off camera. Then I'll be right back and I'll show you how it all goes together. Before I do that though, let's have a look at that frame in close detail. I don't want to show a half ruined frame. So let's clear these bases out of the way. So we get two 28mm bases for our Repentia, one 25mm for our Arcoflagellant, 6 32mm bases, that's for all our battle sisters, and one 50mm base, that's for our Penitent Engine. We also get a full frame of flying stands for our sister Superior, so you can choose which of these you want to have her on. Seeing as this one's decided to snap itself off, I'm going to use this one. And here we have the frame itself. Let's just zoom in a touch. And we can see all the different components. So they are pretty scattered throughout the frame. Most of the body halves are close together. So you've got the Simulacrum sister body halves here, Superior there, Seraphim there, Repentia mistress there, one Arcoflagellant, one Repentia, two Repentia, Stormbolter, Flamer, and our Arcoflagellant there. So, and then our Penitent Engine is pretty much all down in this bottom corner here. Just flip it over, we've got some nice detail on the other side. So you've got the Simulacrum itself here, we've got skulls inside a nice padded little reliquary area. And you've got nice wooden details on the back as well. Then we've got the front and rear of our Penitent Engine's main torso. His buzzsaw arms, the heavy flamer nozzles there. Various backpacks for our Superior sisters. And as well as their heads. There are no extra heads on this frame, but each head is a separate component and can easily be switched out with any other body from this or any other of the spare heads you get in issues 46 or 54. We have our Seraphim's jump pack there, her plasma pistol and her power sword. And then we have our burnt heretic here. He's got a separate component for his head, and his charcoal remains. Our Flamer sister's actual flamer there. So, really chock-a-block frame. There is some conversion abilities with this. I will get into that in a minute. But first, let's have a look at building that Penitent Engine. Okay, I've clipped out and cleaned up all the different components for our Penitent Engine. And the first thing I've already done is glued the two halves of the torso together. Just want to put a thin bead of glue down here and a thin bead of glue along the sides of the torso and just sandwich them together. And the first thing you want to do after that is we want to apply a small bit of glue just along this section here. Then we take the pilot, hook these bits over the hip joints and swing it into position like so. Then we can take this front section, want to run glue all along the inside like so. A little bit on the top here as well. And that simply pushes over and seals everything together. And it takes some time to dry, but make sure you hold it together quite tightly. As you can see, it should go together quite alright. Next thing you want to do is apply a bit of glue along the bottom beam here and these two pieces here, and then we can attach the remainder of our hip guards like so, making sure these hooks are hanging downwards. And there we have the main body all built. So now we can put on the arms of our actual penitent. So just put a bit of glue on his chest and a little bit along his abdomen there. Then we take our arms, slot them in to position like so. Put that off to the side. Next up, we can build his arms. So when you look at the arms, you'll notice there is a small notch on either side. And this is to help guide the flamers in. So they will only go onto one side. So we've got a little nub on the inside there. We'll put some glue in there and a little bit on the end of the pipes. And then we see the guide hole there, nub. Just push into place. And the cables will latch in just underneath the flame canister there. They'll go into these little holes just here. So do it again with the glue on the actual arm itself this time, so you can see a little bit better where the contact points are. So we lower the pipes into position and then bring the heavy flamer down. And there we have our two arms. Next up, we got our legs, and like I said earlier, these toes are slightly differently angled, so they will only go onto one actual leg. And I'll show you what I mean. If we try to put this one on, things don't properly line up. You can see there, one side is lower than the other. So we put a little bit of glue in here, along here, and just in there. And then we bring in our toes and glue them together like that. There we go. Just bring in all our different sub-assemblies. Now to begin our final assembly, you'll notice again we've got little notches on the hips there, and they are both slightly angled differently. One is angled backwards a little bit and the other one is more flush. So the legs will only go on one way. So we got on the inside there of the bowl, you can see the post and the notch. So that will guide that leg into place, like so. Do the same on the other side. And again, you got a post and a notch that will help guide the leg to sit in correct position. So you're sort of in a running pose like so. Moving on to the arms then. They are again keyed, so they only go on a specific way. So one arm will go on like that. Just put a bit of glue on the post and on the contact point there. And one arm. Then glue there and there. And the other arm. There we go. All what's left to do is glue him down to his base. And like with the Repentia Flagellant, I suggest you put a bit of glue on his toes. Hold the model upside down and bring your base in and put pressure on the base, not the model. And there we have our drunk penitent. Take a while for the glue to actually dry, but there we have our finished model. Okay, before we move on to the paint guide for the issue, I've got a few tips on what you can do if you have multiple copies of this very sprue. So we know we get a lot of models on here, and most of them are mono pose. But with a few cuts, swaps, pinning and gluing, you can make some different posing models. So the first one I want to show is this. This is my Palatine / alternate Canoness. So we got the power sword from the Seraphim Superior. I glued in the chainsword arm, cut the chainsword off, and then cut the power sword off. Drilled just a couple of millimeters into the skull where it's thickest, and then into the hand, put a bit of paperclip and super glued it in place. The head is the Stormbolter sister. I just quite like it, makes it look very Nick Fury. Then the plasma pistol is again from the Seraphim Superior. I just cut away the bolt gun, cut the front half off, cut another chunk off, and then cut as close to the hand as I can before cleaning it off with my knife. Then for the plasma pistol, I just cut with my knife along the underside and then down behind the fuel cell. And then that's just glued straight on. And for her backpack, I've used the Repentia one. It's only blue tacked on temporarily for the moment until I can paint her. But that's going to be my Canoness or Palatine for my own order. I might do the same again depending on how much I want to use other components for other models. So that's my first conversion. My second conversion is a more action posed Sister Superior using the Repentia Mistress for the main body. The right arm is a spare Seraphim pistol. I ended up having one damaged, so I just glued the hand in place. And the left arm is the bolt gun from the Simulacrum. I did mess up, so I ended up having to make use of two different arm components, but the glue has dried and I can clean that up before I start painting. And the head is the regular Sister Superior head. I think that looks quite nice. You can use that again as a maybe a different Canoness if you so wish. Just makes it look more sort of dynamic. The next one isn't much of a conversion. It's just the Stormbolter sister with a head from issue 46's. Most of the heads will fit in perfectly with each other. They all have the same neck joint. You will have to cut the little tabs off at the bottom, but other than that, they fit in just fine. And of course, she has her specific backpack, so that fits on just fine like that. And the backpack again from the Simulacrum will fit perfectly into slot there. We'll need a bit of glue, but will fit on. Right, other conversions you can do if you've got multiples. So your I keep getting this muddled. The Penitent Engine, there's not a lot you can do, but if you cut away the tabs and even the posts, you should be able to get the legs to pose slightly different. So you could have a slightly more leaning forward pose, if you so wish. And then for the arms, if you cut these raised posts off flat, you can then get the arms to fit on, again, however you so wish. You might want to pin them in just to make sure they got a bit more solid hold, but they should hold in quite well. As I mentioned in the build guide, the flamers are keyed to go a specific way, so you can only really get those on one arm, so there's no way you can change them around much. But yeah, other than that, there's not a lot more in the way of conversions you can do. Like I said, you can change the Repentia arms. You just will need to fill in a little bit of gap here and there with some green stuff. The heads you can't really change. I haven't yet tried with the other Repentia components. You might be able to do with that. Like I said, I haven't tried yet. I'll get around to having a mess around with that at some point. The flamer is another one that might be able to swap, as the arms are all separate. You can easily just mix and match that with another torso. So I will have a look at the other sisters that I got a spare and see if I can do a gun swap there. So the only other thing you can do if you have multiples of this frame is you can make a different unit type for your sister's army. So you can make yourself a Dominion squad. Dominion squads are a advanced scouting sort of force to the sisters. They specialize in wielding multiple special weapons. So your basic squad can have up to 4 special weapons. So if you have multiples of this very frame, like I have, I've got 4 in total. So that gives me 4 Stormbolters, 4 Flamers. So I can make one squad with 4 Stormbolters, one squad with 4 Flamers, or I can make one squad with 2 and 2. But I will be using some to fill out regular Battle Sister squads, and I do plan on picking up a squad of Battle Sisters to make some extra heavy weapons at some point. So I would like to get a Heavy Bolter and Heavy Flamer into one of my squads. So I have a Heavy Flamer, Heavy Bolter, Stormbolter, and I've got plenty of Simulacrums. So there's not much you can do to change the Simulacrum pose. I mean, you'd have to clip away her raised shoulder pad and reattach it if you wanted to put a different type of arm on. You could give her the chainsword arm, as they are not too dissimilar from each other. And then you could have, again, a different looking Superior. Yeah, really the only limit is your imagination with this. So, as I said, top tips for making use of this. All the heads are interchangeable with the other heads in your Battle Sisters that you get with Imperium. So you do have spare bear heads or spare helmet heads, depending on how you built your previous issue. so you can easily mix and match some of those. You can make yourself characters and additional units by gaining multiples of this frame. And if you have the know-how and don't mind going the extra distance, you can make a few extra changes to your models by the use of green stuff. Well, there we go. That's my little top tips for making use of issue 49. So let's move on to issue 49's paint guide. There isn't much that hasn't already been covered in previous issues, but we will cover what is new. So, just quickly then, we excuse me, give our sisters 3 coats of Abaddon Black, or like me, if you're going to spray them black, you can just spray them black and give it a single coat of Abaddon Black. Picking out the inside robes and the burnt Heretic with Corn Red, the outside robes with Mephiston Red, all our leather and wood with Mournfang Brown. There is one area of wood it doesn't show you to paint, and I will show you that when we get there. Painting all our silver, lead belcher, white areas including skin and hair with Corax White, candles on the simulacrum, Screamer Pink on the lining of the simulacrum and the Purity Seal waxes, then rack our flesh on Purity Seals and skulls. And you also want to make sure you paint your rocks Corax White as we start putting on our washes. So we wash Agrax Earthshade over the rocks. Then we add Macragge Blue to the plasma pistol on the Seraphim Superior. We then apply Nuln Oil all over, avoiding the head and hair. We then pick out all our gold details with Retributor Armor before washing the gold and the face with Reikland Flesh Shade. Then we are edge highlighting all our metal areas with Stormhost Silver, so that's our gold and our silver. Just take your time going around the models. And make sure you thin your paints quite a lot and don't have too much on your brush. Then for our outer robes and our Purity Seals, so we're highlighting the Purity Seals of Pink Horror, get my words in the right order. And then for the outer robes, we are giving edge highlight with Wild Rider Red. The Flaming Corpse, we are dry brushing all over Abaddon Black, leaving the Corn Red showing in the deepest recesses. Then we're moving on to our Repentia and the Arco Flagellant. So these are fairly simple. 3 coats of Corax White, paint the gold details, then give the model an all-over wash with Reikland Flesh Shade. Paint the hair Corax White, paint your silver areas Lead Belcher, Purity Seal Wax, Screamer Pink, black clothing, Abaddon Black, red cables, Mephiston Red, and then any Purity Seals with Rackar Flesh. Then washing all those new areas with Agrax Earthshade, then your silvers and the hair with Nuln Oil. Give them a dry brush with Stormhost Silver to pick up most of the edges using your starter brush. Then we're picking out, don't forget to edge highlight with Stormhost Silver along the larger areas of silver. Then picking out Purity Seals and the wires with Pink Horror and Wild Rider Red respectively. And now we're moving on to our Penitent Engine. I was right the first time. And this is a pretty good paint guide. There is a few bits, like I said, that I would have done a little bit differently. So, good way to start is with the full over Lead Belcher, then wash it in Nuln Oil. I'll be doing that because I'll be spraying mine Lead Belcher, giving it a wash in Nuln Oil. Then you pick out your gold trim, wash all your gold with Reikland Flesh Shade, then you're giving the model an all-over dry brush with Stormhost Silver. That is one of the best ways you can do to pick out all your detail. So, painting all our skin areas Corax White, then Reikland Flesh Shade. So here's one of the first areas that you can change. So the fatigues says to paint Macragge Blue. If you're going to have multiples of these in your collection, I do suggest you paint them different colours. So you can have one in black, one in red, etc. Just use what you got in your paint collection. Moving on to Mephiston Red then, we're picking out the fuel tanks and the wires on the headgear. Purity seal waxes with Screaming Pink, shading all those areas with Nuln Oil. And here is where we can get to the second paint that is actually missed. So you will notice that in behind this gold trim we have what looks like woody area, and in all the official images this is indeed painted wood. So simply use the method for painting the wood on the simulacrum. So you get a thin brush and put some Mornfang brown into this recess, and then give it a wash with Nuln Oil, and you'll have yourself a nice looking wood effect. Moving on, back our flesh on the purity seals, and then it is just a simple matter of Agrax Earthshade, highlighting your purity seals with Pink Horror, cables with Wild Rider Red, just getting the upper edges of the cables. You don't need to worry about the underside, pick out the areas where the light will be touching the most. And then finally, for all your models, you give each one a coat of Astrogranite with a wash of Nuln Oil. And there we have a beautiful finished gallery of all our models. So there's a few extra details. You got the eye patch on the Stormbolter sister, that's just picked out with Abaddon Black. Got the bionic eye on the Sister Superior, that's Leadbelcher with Macragge Blue in the actual centre over the lens. Then we got all the detail here on the simulacrum looking quite nice. And if I just quickly slide over, here's the official artwork, and as you can see in that little gap we have got wood panels. So just do like the simulacrum has done there. And yeah, some rather nice models. So might as well quickly cover the rules. So we only have, like I said, one page rules in this, plus our fold out. So we've got the full rules for our Repentia Superior, which makes your Sisters of Repentia a lot better. So you can, as long as you include a Sisters of Repentia, one Superior can be included without taking up the elite slots, which is handy. So in your command phase, you can select a Sisters Repentia unit within 3 inches, and if you do so, that model is eligible to charge, even if they have advanced. So that's pretty good, makes them quicker. And each time you make a charge roll an additional d6 and discard whichever one you don't want. Then we have an aura ability, so when a Repentia unit within 6 inches makes a melee attack, add 1 to the wound roll. So that's pretty good, because Strength 6 chainswords aren't going to be doing much damage, but plus 1 to a wound roll will be pretty good. So most of the time you'll be wounding stuff on 3s. So if you roll a bunch of 2s, extra 1 is always handy. And then we have our Penitent Engine itself. It's a pretty beefy machine. So movement 8, weapon skill plus skill 4, strength toughness and wounds of 5, 4 attacks, leadership 8, and a 4+ save. So we have 2 heavy flamers and 2 buzzsaws. So heavy d6 for our flamers, strength 6 -1, 1 damage automatically hits the target. Buzzsaws are +3 strength, so your strength 8, -4 AP and 2 damage each. Endless Suffering, so they can pile in an additional 2 inches, so a total piling move of 5 inches, which is pretty cool. And they can also declare a charge even if they advance, much like the Repentia with the Superior. They have a Berserk Killing Machines rule, so they can ignore wounds on a 5+. If you have 2 buzzsaws, you get an extra attack. If you have 2 flails, again, you get an extra attack. So we are 5 attacks instead of 4, so that's pretty good. You cannot perform actions, but you can still claim objectives. So, and we have a bit of tutorial on the back. So the Driven Onwards rule. So example here of your charge roll. And then we got the rule for the Endless Suffering. So he charges in, piles in that way, kills the Royal Warden, and then piles into the objective. So that's a nice little tutorial. And the final thing, don't throw the back page away, as we have, excuse me again, yet more objective markers. So depending on if we're going to end up using some of the same, I might have to put these on my second objective sets, but either way I'll still have sets with marks 1 to 6 and the optional action objectives. So, while we're here, let's have a look at our next Imperium. So, issue 50, we get the Royal Court. We learn about some of the new orders of the Sisters of Battle, and we get a new Necron datasheet. So, what we are doing is we are only getting the datasheet for the Reanimator. The build and paint guide covers everything we get, but we're only using the Reanimator in our mission. So, what I'm going to do is I will build and paint the Reanimator in issue 50 and use it in the mission, as we would do. The other models I'm going to leave until we get issue 51, where we use the full power of the Royal Court. And we get 2 new paints, so Pad Witch Flesh, so this will be highlighting our flesh and purity seals, etc. And Dawnstone will be highlighting a lot of our black areas. So we'll be probably doing the levers with Dawnstone on our sisters, as well as any black gun casings on our Space Marines. So we learn to highlight all our models, and we get new Necron datasheets. So yeah, we get the Scorpion Destroyer datasheet, Plasmancer datasheet, and Crypto Falls datasheet, I'd expect. But that's going to be our next delivery. So that's it for issue 49 part 1. I'll be back with part 2 next week sometime, where we play the biggest battle yet. And I'm really going to have to hope I can fit everything on the floor down here. I might have to have a bit of a shift around in the studio. I should be able to get a good place to play. All that's left then is to say thank you all for watching. I know this video has been a long one, but I have covered quite a bit. I might put some timestamps in the description down below if you want to skip over certain sections. But again, thank you all for watching if you've made it all the way to the end. Please, if you think I deserve it, give me a like. Please do share this video with your social media groups. Leave a comment in the description down below if you've enjoyed the video. And I will see you next time for more mad content. Goodbye.